Pretty awesome audience. We'll get our meeting called to order. Roll call, please.
Yes, Madam President, all board members are counted and here, and we have a quorum. All that.
Thank you. We'll move on to the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise and join us in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First item on the agenda is consent. May I get a motion to approve consent?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? Aye. Thank you. Moving right along to discussion, we turn to the sale of the general obligation bonds. Mr. McMichael.
You have it right. Okay. This evening, I would like to discuss with you the possibility of selling some general obligation bonds. Board will recall last year we sold some GO bonds as well. These particular bonds the total would be $12,080,000. They would be repaid over the next 4 years, so that's a relatively short timeline to pay off the bonds. The benefit of doing the bonds would be that they would provide funds needed funds in the area of facilities and technology. They would also allow us to be one factor in managing our debt service tax rate over the next 10 years. The board's aware that with the recession, some state legislation, the circuit breaker, our capital funds, which are funds that we use to pay cash for facility needs and other capital expenses, have been suppressed due to the economy as well as some state legislation. These funds would allow us to really catch up on some work that we would like to do. And at the same time, we're in a very enviable position relative to the tax rate because with the sale of these bonds, our tax rate would, in a debt service fund, would be it's estimated to be about 32 cents, and which is what it was last year. It did drop about 3 cents, I believe, this year. So that it would bring it back to what it was last year. So it would not have a significant impact on the tax rate. I've attached there's a number of attachments to your board report. The first one is referred to as a life cycle plan. When we look at our facilities, we anticipate about over a 30-year period. By the time the buildings are about 30 years old, we anticipate that they will be in need of major renovation. Now, it's not an exact science, so it may be 29 years or it could be 35 years. But we know certain mechanical equipment, the roof systems, some of those major pieces begin to fail at that age. So for planning purposes, we look at a 30-year cycle and then what we call midlife cycle, about 15 years, because in about 15 years we anticipate things such as interior finishes, carpeting, and so forth will be due to be replaced. Now, at 15 years, in some buildings, the carpeting may not look that bad, but the issue is we don't anticipate that it will last 30 years. So in other words, there are a number of things, in the same way with paint, and wall covering and so forth. So there are a number of things that about midway through that 30 years, we go into a building and do those kind of projects. So with those assumptions, I've also assumed another bond issue in 2019 for $20 million. Now, we certainly don't know at this point whether we'll need that, but we do know that we have two schools in particular, Cherry Tree and Smoky Row, which will be coming, and Carmel Elementary will be coming up on that 30-year mark. So I included that just so that we kind of have a placeholder so that you wouldn't be misled by the tax rate, because absent that, the tax rate would show a drop. And so I plug that in there to at least anticipate that possibility and to show that even with that, our tax rate will stay level or even be slightly less than it was last year. Now, the particular projects, the first series of projects would be at Carmel High School, and they total $7.9 million for construction costs. And they include such things as replacement of floor finishes. The board's aware that we did major work there in the mid-'90s, and so that work, we've done some replacement, keeping in mind now that we have about 1 million square feet up there. So we have done some replacement of carpeting and other flooring, but this would have established a budget of $4.5 million to do additional finishes and flooring and so forth. By the way, we would not do all these projects in 1 year because at the high school, for example, we would do as much as we could during the summer, but we would want to avoid doing this during the school year so as to not disrupt the classes. Another project at the high school would include a cross-country locker room project, and that's really tied in with the replacement of the sports building. The sports building, as you know, is the facility located at the soccer field. And so we would have if we demolish that building, we would replace the building with concession and facilities for soccer, but because we have the space in the existing building, we would put the cross-country locker room in what now is referred to as the old wrestling room. So then another project would be $500,000 for auditorium repairs, $500,000 for roof replacement. Now that's certainly portions of the roof, not by any means the entire roof. $100,000 for some temperature control upgrades, and $300,000 for some paving. And so that would be at all at Carmel High School. Another project would be replacing flooring and finishes at Town Meadow Elementary School for $800,000. Excuse me. Some renovation to our transportation facility for $1.2 million, and then $2 million of technology, primarily replacement of computers. So in total, $11.9 million. The difference between that and the $12 million is the cost of issuing the bonds. So another thing this would do for us is it would give us more flexibility in our capital fund. As you recall, in our strategic plan, one of the areas was noted was technology. And so we don't know what our strategic planning will bring in that regard, but this would give us some flexibility if we needed it in the area of technology. I've given you a summary of projected tax rates, which if yours is like mine, it's sideways rather than left and right. But you can see from this I have projected out our entire tax rate. Beginning in last year, as I said, our total tax rate was about 84.5 cents. This year that dropped to just under 81 cents. With this bond issue, I projected that it would go to back to 83 cents, which would still be about a penny less than it was last year. It would stay at 83 cents until 2018, and then drop down to 80 cents. And then it would stay at 80 cents projected out through 2023. Now, there are a number of assumptions in the rate, so it's not an exact science, but we've assumed an increase in the assessed value of, I believe, 0.5% a year, so that's fairly conservative, we think. If it were to go higher than that, then this rate would come down. Because our other tax rates, such as transportation and the capital projects fund, those funds have a cap on the rate. So, and we're at that cap. So the transportation can vary a little bit, but very little. And so we would not see anything that would suggest that the sale of these bonds would in any way spike the tax rate. And then there's some information that you have to give more specific detail from Umball and Associates, our financial advisor. And then finally, there's a schedule of events at the end. And So this entire process would take until about June, end of June, and would actually I would ask for action at the next board meeting, which time we would advertise. There are a series of hearings required to give opportunity for the public to have input, and so we would have those hearings, advertise for the hearings, and then have the hearings, and then go through the process of selling bonds. So with that, I think I'll stop and respond to questions that you might have.
Thank you, Roger. That was very thorough, and I appreciate all the attachments that you've included as well. I open it up to the board for any questions. Pam.
Yes, we're doing the 12 million this year, and then the 20 million in 2019, correct?
Yes.
Okay, I've noticed on your replacement chart that our buildings are getting to the point where they need to be replaced on the 30-year cycle, about one every year from now on.
Yes, you recall that in the early 2000s, we did a lot of work. We built Creekside, renovated both middle schools, built the Freshman Center, built West Clay, built Collegewood, and renovated Forest Dale. So all that work took place in relatively few number of years, and thus it's all kind of coming due at near the same time. You also see that the tax rate, pretty much we pay off our debt in about 2023 or 4. That reflects all of that work. And so about the time, and actually sometime after that, then those buildings will be due for major renovations, but it'll be a few years after all the debt's paid off. So I would expect that we'll have new debt to do the major work, but it may not be as large as the current debt. So it certainly wouldn't be any larger because this debt reflects building the buildings in the first place, so we wouldn't spend as much to renovate them as we spent to build them.
Okay, so the 20 million for 2019 will probably go for Carmel Elementary and Cherry Tree.
Could. Again, I put that number out there just to recognize that we do have some major work that's likely to come up about that time. Now, it could be a few years after that. It's not likely to be a few years before that because, that's not that far out. And so Cherry Tree, for example, from just seeing the building that it's not like it's in poor condition or anything at this point. And we put a roof on it
Right.
just a couple of years ago because the roof didn't last as long as we would normally expect a roof to last. But so we do have those projects that I'm based on that 30-year cycle. They're showing in about 18, 19, and then 22, and then 24, and so forth. So
Yeah, it's either 2 or 1.
yes,
There's 1 3-year in there, but they're mostly 2 or 1 year,
Yes.
so they're just going to keep popping up really fast after.
they are. But fortunately, our debt will also be
Paid off.
Almost all of it's paid off about the same time. So
Okay.
I would anticipate that we'll have some debt to replace the debt we have. There'll be some of that being replaced for these same buildings because there was, as I mentioned, there were several of them that were built or renovated within just a few years of each other.
I was just curious. I'd heard that there were a lot of leaks at Forest Dale lately, and so was wondering if
Not Mohawk, maybe?
Forest Dale.
Not a lot of leaks at Forest Dale that I'm aware of.
There were buckets everywhere.
Yeah, I'm not aware that there were buckets everywhere, but
Okay, well, it just
wouldn't say there
was
wasn't a bucket
wondering if we were
somewhere,
looking
but-
at a roof replacement
Yeah, pardon me?
there.
Actually,
Is that in line of?
no, not in the next year or two. That building was renovated. I don't know specifically without checking what we did to the roof, but we did a major renovation at that building about 2003, I think.
Okay.
It tells us here somewhere.
2003.
Yeah, 2003.
Mohawk's getting a new one this cycle this summer, though.
Right.
That's where we had some challenges.
Right. This was just new information.
It'd be nice if I had gotten it because I had.
Are there other questions?
I do have one question,
Please go
I
ahead.
guess. First of all, I appreciate you managing the tax rate. That's, that affects all of us in the community, so I appreciate that. Do the amounts of the projects here, do the total amounts trigger any process?
Yes, they do. There's 2 or 3 different processes, as a matter of fact. Carmel High School, because of its size, I think any project over $1 million has what we refer to as a 1028 hearing. So there's a public hearing on that, just on that project. Then, depending on the dollar amount of the overall project, Carmel High School, for example, will have a hearing that's a little different than Town Meadow, for example, or actually the other projects, because of its size. Once you get over $2 million, I believe, it goes then to, they'll run concurrently, but from a taxpayer standpoint, there's an opportunity for a remonstrance on Carmel High School or any project over the $2 million. Whereas the projects that are smaller than that, the taxpayers have an opportunity for an appeal. But the appeal process is just different with the larger project than it is with the smaller projects.
Thank you.
Yes, Pam?
I'm sorry, I forgot to ask this the last time. I know that there's something going through the legislature right now with the common construction wage, and TOR is working on repealing that. Is that going to have any effect on the amount of money that you think you're going to need?
I wouldn't anticipate that it would.
It won't change the cost of construction?
I can't say that it won't change the cost of it. Our practice has been to adopt the common wage as which has been the ABC wage. It's a non-union wage. So, as opposed to the union wage, and so which is the lower of the two. Now, so when a project is bid currently, the contractors must pay that. They can pay more, but they can't pay less than that wage. And so, and across the state, there have been some districts adopt the union wage and some districts adopt the common wage. So even with the current legislation and rules, and recognizing that the union wage is more than the non-union wage.
Right.
I'm not aware, and in talking to our construction manager and our architects, I've asked the question: the projects that they work on, do they see a difference based on the union wage versus the other? And they've said they have not. So it doesn't mean there isn't any. It's just, in multi-million-dollar projects that are different, it's not like they're building 2 identical buildings, one with one wage and one with the other, so they don't have that exact comparison. But just being in the field and being in the industry, they've not noticed a difference currently. So if the legislature lifts all of this requirement and totally leaves it up to the marketplace, you could speculate that at least you're going to get the best price that particular day, and it's not going to have a floor on it in terms of what they price it at. But in our case, I don't anticipate that we'll see an obvious difference there. It certainly we wouldn't change our budget estimates at this point. Keep in mind that regardless of what the statute is, if the contractor is a union contractor, they're going to pay union wages regardless. So.
Other questions? Great. Well, Roger, I appreciate what you've provided to us thus far.
Thank you.
Question for you. The agenda for the next meeting, which will be next week, you will provide to Nick what it is you'd like to see us adopt or pass as an action item for advertising for these hearings?
Yes.
Okay.
Let's see. Yes, there will be a number of resolutions that will be provided.
Okay.
And all of them essentially are seeking your approval to take the next step to advertise for all the required hearings. And there are different resolutions there's a resolution for each project. And so there are multiple resolutions, but they're all getting approval to to advertise hearings.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And next, we have our workshop topic and the board. I invite you to the floor, and we will take a position and turn to Dr. Dudley and her team. Thank you.
Hey, how are you? No. It doesn't matter at all as long as you can see the screen.
Okay, thank you. This evening, we're excited to bring to you how we use technology in the classroom to connect, collect, create, and collaborate, or hashtag C4. And so this evening we have 4 wonderful presenters that will be sharing how they use this in their own practice in their buildings. So we have Mr. Chris Atkinson, our principal at Cherry Tree. We have Mrs. Enid Baines, English teacher at the high school, Mrs. Leslie Karpiak, technology teacher at Carmel Middle School, and Mr. Kyle Schulenberg, 5th grade teacher at Town Meadow. So we're excited that they're here to share their great practices, and I'll turn it over to Chris.
Well, first of all, I'm gonna have to bend over a little bit here, I think. Thank you very much for inviting us. We had a lot of fun working on this project together, and these are our avatars. So since we're going to go digital tonight as much as we can, we thought you would enjoy this. This is from a website we've used before to create avatars, and I think they look pretty realistic. Our Twitter handles are there also if you would like to follow us on Twitter, and for sure you're going to want to follow the C4 conference on Twitter, and we're going to highlight some of those great things tonight. Sometimes people may even refer to us as the Geek Squad, and we're okay with that tonight, and you're welcome to use that terminology too. It won't offend us at all. But again, thanks for coming. We don't have a lot of time. We have around 30 minutes, and so we're going to do our best to get through all the content. So, I like to tell people, buckle up. We're going to be taking a ride, and we certainly hope that you are excited to join us. Our learning targets for this workshop are, I can explain what C4 is and its impact in Carmel Clay schools, and I can understand how some teachers and administrators are using technology to connect, collect, collaborate, and create. And if you can walk away knowing those 2 things, that'd be great. So we're going to first talk about the C4 conference, and I thought it'd be great to share with you some statistics from 2014, the conference we had this past July. And I had the privilege of serving on the C4 committee and being a part of that conference, and even being able to present at that conference. We had over 300 plus attendees from across the state of Indiana attend that conference. We had Leslie Fisher, who is a world-renowned keynote, who gave us a wonderful keynote at the conference and shared several BYOD tools for our teachers that, as a principal, I see them in classrooms all the time, and you're going to see some of those highlighted tonight by teachers at different levels in our district. 67 unique sessions and workshops were offered. And then we have what's coming up. So it was an exciting conference in 2014, and now we are venturing out for our 2nd annual C4 conference, July 15th, 2015. And we're excited to invite Eric Scheninger, who is actually a fellow at the International Center for Leadership in Technology. Prior to that, he was a technology coordinator and high school principal, and so actually Director of Technology and Innovation was the title. But brings a wealth of experience. He is a well-known speaker, travels around, does a lot of consulting for schools and speaking on the topic of digital learning and digital leadership in general. And so we're super excited about having him back here. And we're opening up this conference to Carmel Clay colleagues. And the fun thing about that is last year there was a grant co-authored by Dr. Dudley and Chrissy Cloud, and we got some money from the state to be able to hold that conference, an e-learning grant through the Summer of E-Learning. And we're actually doing this on our own this time. And so we're opening it up to Carmel colleagues. We're venturing out to invite speakers from all over the state and beyond. And those speakers that get accepted to present, they may bring, if they're from an outside district, we're allowing them to bring up to 5 people from their particular district to share in this wonderful experience at no charge to them at all. And so this is Eric. I had a little clip of him. I thought you'd be interested to see him speak. And it's just 30 seconds.
So the world has changed fundamentally since when we were in school. And many of those changes, as we know, unless we live under a rock, have to do with technology. Students and adults today can connect and engage and collaborate like never before. And when I think about all of these changes, I think about how our students today are fundamentally different. They are wired differently. They are digital learners in every sense.
So just a little snippet of what you'll see at the C4 conference when Mr. Schinninger speaks. Again, we are super excited. We've got a great committee working on this 2015 conference. We're in that beginning planning stages right now. We've opened up session proposals, and we've actually started receiving some back from people. And so we're excited to see a great crowd again at the second annual C4 conference. And so the C4 is really centered around 4 verbs. We talk about connect, collect, collaborate, and create. So we invited Kyle, Leslie, and Enid to speak at different levels, and myself on each one of these verbs. And so I'm going to be speaking on connect and how, as a building principal, I use different digital tools to connect my stakeholders. And particularly this quote, I thought, from Eric comes to play a lot. So if you can take a minute to read that. So these are powerful tools that really help us as leaders paint the story to our various stakeholders. How do we do that? One tool is Twitter. So 140 characters or less, believe it or not, is a pretty powerful tool. So on the, I have a Cherry Tree account that I use. We have 429 followers. We connect up to other people who are following us on Twitter, many of our various stakeholders. We actually have a Cherry Tree PTO account, and so we actually tweet each other back and forth. And it's a great way to spread the great news that's going on in our school. Here's just a sampling of how that happens on a daily basis. Have a Facebook page, and we currently have, I think, around 280, and it keeps growing, somewhere up in the range 280, 290 people following us on Facebook. And those people actually are to share some of the great news that happens in our school with other family members and friends on Facebook too. Another great way to tell our story. This is new, Instagram for us using this. This is a tool that we didn't use at Cherry Tree last year, but we've actually seen 128 followers come aboard and actually share pictures that are going on in our school. And again, telling that story. So connecting with all the various stakeholders that we have in art, we really want them to feel that connection and for us to be able to paint that positive picture about what's going on in our school and in our district too. We use YouTube to actually create videos, and we'll post those videos on YouTube. They made me kiss a pig this year, and so we put that video on YouTube and allowed other people to be able to view that. And again, it's a great way to share beyond just our building at that moment, and it allows people to live that moment again and again. And we can put those things on YouTube so people can access them at any time. Google+. This is a tool that isn't widely used, but it actually has a feature called Hangouts on Air. So you can actually have a live hangout where people can tune in, call in, they can watch it live on YouTube, and the video actually saves to your YouTube channel. So I ventured out and tried one of these this year, a Meet Mr. Atkinson night. And I didn't wear that pirate hat the whole time, by the way. But it has really neat features that you can use. But again, this is just another way that we can connect with various stakeholders. We have a blog at Cherry Tree where we can actually, again, shape that story. We can share the many positive things going on. People can leave kudos that we share with staff. They can actually subscribe to weekly updates of all the blog posts that are posted there. And those posts automatically go to Twitter, and they go to Facebook, and they again feed across all the various channels. We know that our parents are connecting in many various ways. And how do we know these types of tools are effective? We can actually gather data on how often people are engaging with these tools. So this is data from just the blog. So this year in general, brand new tool that we've used at Cherry Tree, over 3,605 page views. So I think our community is hungry to connect in this way, and they are using these ways to connect, and we're using these tools to help connect. Again, Facebook data that we can use to kind of see how often people are engaging in that way. Same thing with Twitter. So we actually can look at all that data to see how various people connect. So this, again, comes back to that verb connect and how we use technology to connect our stakeholders. So from a principal standpoint, we get to tell all the positive things that our wonderful teachers are doing in our schools, and these are tools that we can use to do that. So many of these tools were shared with people in the 2014 conference. We'll share these tools again in the 2015 conference, but another great way to connect all of our stakeholders. So if you don't follow all these places, get on and follow. So the other great thing about these tools is that it can help connect educators. So I've been a part of Twitter for many, many years, actually, even back when I was teaching personally. I've been able to connect to over 4,000 different educators and educational leaders across the world. And it serves as a great way for me to get continuous information also. And so I take that information and actually publish a weekly digest for my staff. So I also use a staff blog where my staff connects, is able to get a weekly digest of some of those resources that I've found and shared. But also we house all of our professional development slides from faculty shares and collaborations on here too. So it serves as a place where they can go and connect at any time with those materials. And that's all I have for Connect. So what's up?
So a lot of the teachers at during the C4 conference, during the workshop, showed us different ways to collect formative data from our students. Some of the biggest challenges as a 5th grade teacher and as a 4th grade teacher was to give a 20-minute lesson and do 4 or 5 of those throughout the day, and then really try to gauge, do the students get it? Does it really click with them? And to do a paper assessment where you hand out a piece of paper after a 20-minute lesson to make sure you have enough photocopies for that, to pass them out, give them time to answer the questions, to collect them, then grade them, and then create your reteaching groups. It is a paper nightmare. You often get behind. What the C4 conference has done, and what a lot of the tools that have kind of come out in the last couple years has allowed teachers to be able to really collect that data quickly to guide our instruction. So I was going to show you a couple of those tools. The first tool is called Socrative. And what Socrative is an online tool that a teacher creates an account. The students use their devices, which have greatly increased over the last year or two since the BYOD initiative. And once that question has been quickly posed, usually at last minute, what you receive is quick data. And this is one of the screens that a teacher would see. You can see in this case we had several students working in small groups. And then I can decide, do I need to reteach that concept to the whole class because it just bombed? Or do I need to work with my individual students and see if I can kind of reteach that concept to lead instruction in that direction? So Socrative is something that a lot of students at Town Meadow and Smoky Road are starting to use. The next program is called Infused Learning. Infused Learning was introduced to us last year by our guest speaker, and a lot of teachers have been using this. This has all the functionality of Socrative, except this has a drawing tool, which is really great for our kindergarten through 3rd students. So there's a very quick video. You see on the right, this is a student screen. The question was asked, what is a habitat? Go ahead and draw it. And once it's submitted, you can see on the left, their answer is submitted to a classroom chart along with other students' responses. What I can then do is find out what students have, the idea of what a habitat is, and then as a class we can kind of pull out different elements from those pictures to get a bigger grasp on what habitat is. So this has been a great tool and the kids absolutely love it. If a student doesn't have a device, the computers work with this as well. And one of the last tools I want to show, go is created by Post-it. And students don't need a device for this. All they need is to have a Post-it. The teacher needs to have their phone or an iPad. And what this does, it takes a picture of just a traditional Post-it note. I have my students write their name in the corner to answer a math problem or a grammar problem. And once they answer it and put it on the whiteboard, I take a picture. And what this does is it creates a digital copy of that Post-it note that I can then save to my email address, that I can then organize into different learning groups, that I can then meet those students later in the day or later in the week. This is just a very short example of how it's done. These are just 3 quick tools that we learned this year. And the great thing about devices and about apps and about these different programs, there's new ones coming out all the time. The ones that you saw are all free. And the more we train teachers how to use this and to be confident when they use it, the quicker their feedback loop is that they can use to guide the teacher or to guide the students throughout the day, just so they're not wasting instructional time teaching a concept that the students already know. And it's highly engaging for the students. They really enjoy that. Thank you.
I get the fun part, the creative part. I have mainly seniors at the high school, and one of the creative projects that I have my classical lit classes do is create an online multimedia journal. Now, that doesn't mean that they have to use multimedia. They can use their own, they can use paper and pencil, and they can take pictures, or they can write poems, they can write short stories. They don't have to use the interactive multimedia tools, but those are some of the options that I give them. And I give them a lot of ideas, and then they run with it. And here's an example of one of the journals that I just took a screenshot of somebody's, and we were using Evernote to collect, to piggyback on what Kyle was saying. We use Evernote, which has an app, and so the kids can use this on their phones. And in Evernote, they create and collect their different journal entries that they put together themselves. They connect with the literature in any way they decide is the best connection for them. The first example there is a Voki, and the Voki that she has created here, Thor is explaining why Loki was in trouble yet again, that trickster god. And so she created a Voki, which is an avatar face that speaks, and she put her voice in there, and she made about a 2-minute discussion in Thor's voice. The next one down is a mimeograph, and that's the screenshot you can see here. The mimeograph has layers, and what she did was she took us through a journey of Hercules' labors, the 12 labors that he had to go through to atone for his wrongdoings. I won't tell you why. It's not the Disney story that you might be familiar with. It's a lot darker than that. So she created the 12 stories, and she embedded the maps in the back, which is a very simple tool to use when you use mimeograph. And she has images and text and captions and the voiceover. So a lot of different layers with mimeograph. The next one down that I've actually identified, the Olympian god, she wrote an original poem and typed it out and put it in her Evernote notebook. So there's no technology there. It's just the platform so I could read it was Evernote. And then the final one at the bottom, she created a Powtoon, which again, avatars, and in that one she analyzed the parts of King Arthur's coat of arms. So I didn't give them journal prompts for this. They connect with any of the literature that we do throughout the semester, and this is just one of the assignments that they use to create and connect with the literature that they're reading. Another that I have my juniors use is called VoiceThread. We have a speaking listening standard, and instead of them getting up and giving speeches all the time or doing Socratic seminars, this is another way to collect their oral comments and to assess that in a different way. And VoiceThread is a nice way to do that. I took a screenshot of a sample that I put together as a model for
for Gatsby and connecting it to one of the books one of the nonfiction texts that we use. And they can put in written or oral comments. My juniors are actually doing this tomorrow in class. I have an 8-minute sample here. I'm not going to click on it for time's sake that I put together to show them and to demonstrate, to model what I wanted them to do. But as I play through each picture you see on the side, those are, of course, different pictures of me. I wanted to show a different view. I could have 30 different students giving input to one image, and we can have a conversation online. The way I have it set up with this particular assignment, that's not the best method for this particular assignment, but it can be done that way. So it's just another way for them to create have an oral discussion and provide comments in a different way. So that is a quick overview of how we're creating content.
So I'm going to finish up and talk about Collaborate, our 4th C, and I'm excited about some of the tools that we learned at C4 that I'm using this year in my class. I teach 8th grade, 7th and 8th grade digital video production at Carmel Middle School, and our 6th grade journalism students, taught by Jessica Gilpatrick, and my 8th grade digital video production, or DVP kids, in quarter 3 collaborated together to create a digital celebration of 50 years at Carmel Middle School. So we just celebrated our 50th year anniversary this last year. And so 5 decades is a really big amount of time for middle school students to visualize. They don't quite understand, like, what, 5 decades, I mean 50 years, come on, they're like, what does this look like? So 6th grade students started off by doing collaborative research together on the decades. They pulled out highlights from each of the decades and then shared that information with my 8th grade DVP students in quarter 3. That kind of inspired and got those students excited about different decades, and then my 8th grade DVP students selected a decade, and then part of our curriculum is to film a video in front of a green screen. And the purpose of the green screen, if you've ever seen a weather report, the purpose of the green screen is so that they can change the background. So they can act like they're, walking on the street in the classroom and then put a street background in later on as part of their editing process. So my students then, inspired by the 6th grade research, picked a decade, and then I gave them a choice. They could create a commercial, a music video, a newscast of an event in that decade, or a fashion show about their chosen decade. And so then they had to film, so my students then collaboratively worked in Google Docs to create scripts, shot lists, revise, like share their scripts with each other, revise and edit, and polish it, and then they filmed in front of the green screen, and the goal was that they had to use the green screen effectively, and they had to make their film really feel like it came from that decade. And so they did a lot of research online as well, examples of commercials from their decade, music videos and songs from their decade to kind of get a feel for what it should look like when they were finished. Meanwhile, 6th grade journalism students moved on. They were reaching out to the community members at this time. So while my kids are filming, 6th grade is reaching out to community members. They reached out and found at least 2 or 3 people from every decade who either was a staff member or attended as a student at Carmel Middle School. They borrowed DVP equipment, went out and invited those members into our school and set up interviews with them. And I kind of did a little mini lesson with the 6th graders on using some of the equipment, and they interviewed those members of the community. And then they passed when they were finished with their interviews, which they just finished last week, they then passed those digital files from their interview on to my 8th grade students, who are now in the process of editing those interviews together. So the main goal then, what we're going to create around the school are some displays. There will be a display for the 50s, or the 60s. There will be a display for the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s, the 2010s. There will be an art display, so there will be some collaboration with the art classes as well. We'll be creating this display, and on the display you will see these QR codes. There'll be a QR code to go and see some interviews from community members who were there at that time period, and then there'll also be QR codes to go out and watch the commercials, the music videos, etc. So 6th grade digital video projects and 8th grade digital video projects are going to be coming together in one display that will be up in the halls of Carmel Middle School for years to come. So all visitors that come to our school will be able to come through, grab a QR code, snap a picture, go and watch their videos. So I prepared for you a minute and 20 seconds. I pulled just a few samples of some of my favorite music videos, commercials that the kids use to recreate, as well as a couple of the interview snippets from the journalism students.
Don't clean it, OxyClean it!
Hi, Heather Duke here. Heather Chandler here. And Heather McNair right here. This is Fashion Sense by Heather, Heather, and Heather. The Heathers, at your service to learn all about the fashion that's in.
80s.
Carmel was one of the most fastest growing communities in the United States, truly, during the 1960s.
This was the 90s. They recreated Nirvana.
Martin Luther King Jr., activist against segregation, is speaking live in Washington, D.C.
But wait, there's more! And here we are in Carmel, Indiana, with live footage from the moon landing today on July 16th, 1969.
Reclaim this land.
They were going by the whole joke that people thought that the moon landing was faked. They were really playing on that.
Well, Carmel Middle School has changed quite a bit since 1977 when I first started teaching here.
Oh, baby, there ain't no mountain high enough, ain't no valley low enough, ain't no river wide enough to keep me from getting to you, baby.
I wish you could see that whole video. It's fantastic. So these will be hanging up around Carmel Middle School. Feel free after about spring break to come over and look for those displays for all the different decades. Snap a picture, go watch our videos, go watch the interviews. It was a really great collaborative project between 6th grade and 8th grade, as well as community members. It's going to be around for a really long time. So then we wanted to show you how we collaborated to plan our presentation for this evening. We actually used Google Docs just like our students do, and we started out with an outline. As you can see our comments here on the right-hand side. Ever since we began planning this, we were just jumping in, adding comments, replying to each other, planning how we were going to present this evening. So we wanted you to see that we also were using these tools to collaborate together. And now we would like for you to interact with us. The Kahoot tool is something that we learned from our keynote speaker last year at C4. You're going to be quizzed on this presentation. I hope you know that.
I forgot to mention that.
You are going to be quizzed on the information that you just learned. Kahoot is a fun, interactive, formative assessment tool that we learned about last year at C4, and my students absolutely love it. It turns formative assessment into a bit of a game. So, I've already got this out, right? Let me launch this for you. What you're going to do is open up your browser and go to the website kahoot.it. Safari? Safari?
KAHOOT.IT. And then it asks for the PIN. The PIN number is up on the screen.
And now we get to put in a nickname.
And then you get to pick a nickname for yourself. We need to keep it appropriate. Hey, this is just what I say in the classroom. Make sure your nickname is appropriate. So you'll type in the PIN number, and then you'll pick a nickname for yourself. And I can see that Amy has already joined us. Thank you, Amy. And Ryan.
Yeah, we're on.
That's Ryan.
Are we going to do a nickname?
You guys don't know. Maybe I signed up as Amy.
I have students do that, and then they're all thinking they're funny about it. And they're like, it's going to get a piece of candy or something. And then they're like, but this is really me. I'm like, oh, but there's so much.
Roger, you're in already, buddy. Roger, just use Nick as your nickname. All right.
Kind of like the title shows you. You can pick. I love using Kahoot to kind of gauge where they are.
Oh.
Yeah.
It was trying to get logged in as a guest. I'm trying to do that.
I've never really been crazy on this stuff. I love it, but I can't do it. Sunny? Oh, Colin was hoping to go down there.
I don't know. I should have chosen something else.
I love that you guys are doing exactly what this is. Like the nicknames pop up on the screen, and they're like, "Oh gosh, who's Panda?"
Are we talking middle school?
We're talking middle school.
You're either Sunny or Sam. I'm not sure which. I'm sure no one. Trisha's.
No one will guess that. Of course not. No one will ever guess that.
No, I'm not Scrabble.
No.
Are we ready? Is everybody in?
We're very creative.
All right. So you've got to be ready. Be looking at your device. So here, I'll just give you a quick overview of how this works. A question will pop up on my screen, and then it'll count down. It'll show the question. It'll count down, and then the answer choices will then appear at the bottom. There'll be a couple of answer choices that appear across the bottom. You will get the buttons to select the answer choice on your device.
Slow network, you may experience some delays.
And then the faster that you answer, the more points that you receive. It's a competition. You can see why the kids love it, right? And the faster that you go, the more points that you get. It's better to get the right answer and be a little slower than it is to get the wrong answer, because you get no points if you get the wrong answer, but at least you get some points if you get the right answer.
If you do it wrong, everybody knows.
Well, there's not exactly. We can see that data. This is a great formative assessment tool. Here we go.
That's why my phone is black.
You like the Jeopardy? So on your device, you're either going to put the red triangle or well done, well done, well done. So I can quickly see that 8 of you were paying really close attention. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
I'm only 16 behind Amy.
And then you guys see your ratings, like you can see where you are. And of course the kids are like, okay, who's Happy Panda? I'm like 6 points behind Happy Panda. Like they get all excited about it. All right, here's our scoreboard. Well done, Scrabble Mom and Ryan. You're tied for first place, followed by Amy, Calc Lady, and me. All right, next question. Who is the keynote for the 2015 C4 conference? Whoa, nice. Well done. Ryan and Scrabble Mom still in first place together. Where is the C4 conference being held? You may not have Ooh. This is a great formative assessment tool. It's also a lot of fun. I can just very quickly see who's getting it, who's not. Oh, look at this. Look at this. Still in first. Fourth question of 5. How do we collaborate? We used Google Docs to collaborate. This is a Kahoot, so I can see why 2 of you would have said that. Oh, by 1 point. By 1 point. All right, 1 question left. You ready? Like, True or false? survived a Kahoot? Nice job, Ryan. Look at that. And so at the end, it shows who the winner was, and then we can ask the students for feedback on the Kahoot, whether or not that they learned something, if they recommend it, how they felt after they played it. They have a lot of fun with this. And then as the teacher, I can grab the final results in a spreadsheet and kind of hang on to that as some formative assessment information that I can look at and go, okay, these kids get it, these kids maybe need a little bit of help, or I can get an overall feel for how that they all use nicknames. I can get an overall feel for how the classroom did and what they know and what they don't know. All right. Ready to go back to our presentation?
Can we do it again?
That's what they always say. Thank you for saying that. Now they know all the answers. Can we do it again? Oh, that's it.
Well, that's all we have for tonight. We hope that you see that there are several ways that our teachers and leaders are connecting, creating, collaborating, and reading the last one. Connecting across the district. So hopefully you kind of got a feel for that, a taste of that. It happens every day across our district, and these are powerful tools that we can use to certainly enhance learning. And we're excited for another round of C4 coming up, and hopefully you got a feel for what that was like in 2014 and what we have in store for 2015. So thank you.
Thank you. That's fantastic. Board members, do you have any questions for the team that just presented?
Yes. Is there any specific device that you request that they use when they come in to do all this?
No. No? No.
So it'll work on any
All the
device?
tools that you saw today will work across any device.
Okay.
Computers or handheld devices.
All right. And the Create, when you did the online journals, was that done in class or at home?
Mostly at home.
Mostly
Some in
at
class
home?
to get them up and running and started with it, so I could introduce how to use Evernote, what it was, how to register for some of the programs, but mostly at home.
And is it time consuming?
Yes and no. Enough so it's worth so they meet standards. It's a standards-based activity, but some obviously take a long time creating those, but I would say on average probably every entry might be 20 to 30 minutes, which would be appropriate for the assessment that I've given them. So.
Okay, and another question I had was, how do all of these activities relate back to the standards?
Mine are standards-based. Everything that the assignment sheet, all the different standards are covered. The specific standards that I have in mind for each are standards-based. The speaking listening standard, for instance, for VoiceThread is one of the big ones that we use for that.
Okay, because I know that with creative teaching these days, it's hard to be able to cover the standards and be ready for the test as well. So I applaud you all for doing all the creativity, but I want to make sure, or check to make sure it's relating back to the standards as well.
I can say that in digital learning and digital video production, those are our standards, to collaborate with each other, to use digital tools to collaborate and create, to reach out to the community. All of those things are part of what our standards are in digital learning, digital video production.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I could add to that. These tools are more also used to facilitate formative assessments, but also that collaboration piece. So, the assignment or the meaningful task that teacher has given is going to be tied to those standards, and these are just tools that facilitate some of that deeper learning at that level. So.
I'm not sure if this is for all of you, but this is a great example that every once in a while we hear, I just heard of this neat idea, but my kid's teacher doesn't use that, or my kid doesn't get to experience that. How do we answer? How do we answer that? Because there's different things happening in different classrooms.
Well, I would say, as we think about this, we have
activities are going on in the classroom. What is the guaranteed viable curriculum is the standards, the lessons that are all standards-based. Now, how to get to those, and they shared some various ways of how they're using technology to really engage the students in that learning. But our students are engaged in learning, but maybe in different ways. So Leslie may be using Kahoot in her classroom, or Enid may be using Socrates in her classroom. It's not about the tool that they're using, but the common piece is that they all standards-based is that guaranteed by the curriculum, and then how you get there may be in a lot of different ways. And as Kyle mentioned, all of these apps that they shared tonight are free apps, and they're constantly adding new ones. So there's constantly going to have new ideas that you can use to collaborate, to collect, to engage in that learning. And so it's really a very different, it's not as very free.
One thing I'd say is when we recognized this as a goal last year, the C4 was an opportunity where we're seeking opportunities for our teachers to actually not only demonstrate how they're integrating technology in the classroom on a daily basis, but then model that for other teachers, not only Carmel Clay, but throughout the state. So it was interesting to hear you, the four of you, talk about the things you learned at C4 now you're using. So were you presenters or were you in the audience last year? But you also went to the workshops when you weren't presenting. And now I've cleaned those back. So our goal is clearly to integrate more technology into daily instruction. That continues to be a goal, affirmed by Advanced Ed that it's something we need to do. We're really looking for some strategic direction in our strategic plan for integrating technology into daily practice, because there's so many things that do come out, free apps almost daily. But for our teachers to model this for our other teachers, we believe is one of the most powerful tools that we can do, and that's why C4 is going into the second annual conference. And it's exciting to hear that you, as presenters, also learn from other teachers, because the value of that is incredible. Your point's not lost, though, Tricia. Obviously, our goal is to have the standards presented in a variety of ways, because we know kids learn with a variety of, learning strategies and individual learning styles. So as we continue to promote this, we see hitting more students' learning styles. So it's definitely a work in progress. Good question.
Well, to piggyback off of what Tricia was asking, for teachers who didn't have the opportunity to go to C4 last summer, and then just throughout the course of the year, what tools and resources do we have throughout the course of the year for teachers to have these ideas? Is there a platform that this is shared so they can continue to use them throughout the year if they haven't already been exposed to them?
Well, one of the pieces that we have is we have our ongoing professional work opportunities throughout, and so we incorporate these different tools for teachers to use in their own professional learning, and then they can take that back and use it in their classrooms as well. So, for example, during our elementary teacher meetings, we use Socrates, we use Kahoot, we use several other different tools that then teachers can then take back and easily incorporate into their own classrooms for that learning. And that's an ongoing piece. So like when Chris does faculty shares, he may pull in some different tools that can be used to model it for the learning that's taking place, the professional learning that's taking place, but then also being exposed to how to take it back and do the learning in their own classrooms with those tools.
One of the things that we have at the university level, we talk about academic freedom and choice for teachers to present the material the way they are. And I just want to applaud this group for going out there and finding all these different tools, because not every tool is right for every teacher. And I think the best thing that we are doing here is bringing in other people, and we're going out there and we're searching and giving every teacher an opportunity to find that technology tool that will work for them. I mean, I use Educreations down at Butler when I'm sick. They don't get out of going to lecture because I just put it on the Moodle, and here it is. You got a lecture, and got a lot of great ideas here that I'll take to Butler with me. And who knows, I might come to C4 too.
Well, am I on? Yeah. Okay. I mean, I'd like to applaud this great use of technology, and it's amazing to me as being someone that's approaching 50 decades and struggling with technology. 50 decades, 5 decades, yeah. Yeah, not 50 decades. I'm the oldest here, 50 decades. 5 decades. And I'm sure that we address this in other ways. It's probably not for this group, but I have concerns about security and control of who has access to do these things. I'm sure that's part of C4. But I think my question to you is, how can we as a board incentivize teachers to come to C4 when I'm assuming it's a voluntary thing during the summer?
Well, I think, am I on? You guys can hear me? Okay. You know, as building leaders, you know, we're certainly going to encourage our staff, if they're around, to attend this, as it's a great opportunity. As you can see, the tools that have been brought back and used in classroom to further instruction. And so we'll certainly encourage that. You know, we're looking for our teachers to present too. You know, we're looking at instruction, saying, hey, this, you might do a great job presenting at C4, really consider that. You know, as a board, and one of the goals that we had for our learning target for you tonight is just to really gain an understanding of what this conference is all about, so that you can continue to encourage and talk it up as you have conversations around the community too. And I think that would continue to show our teachers the support that you have for this initiative. So.
And our teachers get PGPs and professional growth opportunities, and continue to expand on, you know, keeping their certification. But also, the word of mouth we got from this, like anything else, is really powerful. And the ongoing opportunities they see their colleagues doing this has been really good. But
yes. I know as a teacher, I used to run into this all the time. What happens when your device isn't working, or you've got several? Like I used to have computers on a cart, and they'd come in, and several of them weren't working, and so you'd spend your whole time trying to get those to work while the other ones are doing what they're supposed to be doing. So that's one question. And what about the students who may not have a device at home that can complete these things? Do we give them the ability to check one out to take home to complete their assignments, or how do we handle that?
We make sure that we always have a paper form of assessment. So if we do that post-it note activity like I showed you, if their device isn't working, or I guess that's my device, if we don't have Socrative working for some of their devices, currently at Town Meadow we have a laptop cart that's shared by the entire grade. So we always have access in school of at least 35 to 40 laptops per grade. If those aren't available, if another teacher is using those, we have two computers in our classroom. And a lot of the incentives that we have been doing as teachers, if you don't have a device and you want to play Kahoot, it's one of the benefits of a student who doesn't have a device to be able to pick their friend and work with them as they work towards answering these questions. So there's a lot of little management techniques with that. And I know how you talked about security before. That's one of the things that our tech coordinators have to do, is how to make our teachers feel comfortable enough to inform parents at the beginning of the year of some of our procedures, so they know that these devices are safe and secure, to be able to provide just some of the lessons we've learned throughout the years of how do you control these devices when they're being used. Something as simple as making sure your screens are facing out all the time, so as a teacher, as I walk by, I can constantly see what's going on. There's just a lot of small techniques that make it very easy for the teachers to be able to control these devices in the classroom. And when it comes to equity and making sure that students are able to use this technology as equally as possible, I really make sure that I don't have any assignment that can't be done paper and pencil, or that they have access to that technology in the classroom.
Any other questions? Well, I thank each of you for being here. This was an amazing, comprehensive report.
Join us at C4. We'd love for the board to join us at C4 this summer.
Well, that sounds...
If it works.
Well, thank you. One little note of information for next week, we do have a meeting on Monday. The following, which would be our typical week, the school board will be returning home from a National School Board Association meeting, so we will be en route to Carmel, so we will not be having a meeting on the 23rd. So our meeting, our traditional meeting, will be next week, Monday, same time, same place. With that, meeting adjourned. Thank you.